You're listening to the WBT Podcast with Micah Lodge. Listen to all of our podcasts at www.wbtpod.com. Stay informed. Let's get started.
And welcome back to the WBT. I'm glad that you're here. Always happy that you're here. So the podcast today, or the conversation that we're going to talk about, are the federal and state taxes, and I hate to say this, it's going to raise your costs. I'll be right back.
This is brought to you by Lodge & Co., a business and tax advisory firm where your success is our goal. Call us today toll-free at 888-681-1518 or visit us at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about what we can do for you. Lodge & Co., your source for sound business and tax services.
So here's the problem. Every time that the federal and the state vote on something, it usually costs small business. And that's what's happening in 2020. There's a lot of different changes. I went over Florida state changes last week, and I went over California. So now we're going to kind of wrap it all up, and we're going to talk about everything that went into effect that's going to affect small business, and it's going to drive your cost to operate your business up. So small business owners, they have plenty of changes to deal with in this great new year of 2020. Higher labor costs for many companies, and some owners will discover that they have to comply with new laws that aren't on the books in the states that they're operating in. As of January 1, there are higher minimum wage in a quarter of the states and new federal overtime rules. The IRS has new W-4 forms owners will need to get used to. It's changed. It looks different. Asks different questions. Plastic bags are on the way out at stores and other businesses in a growing number of places around the country. And, of course, California has new laws on freelancers and consumer privacy that will affect out-of-state companies. So let's look at them, okay? First, we're going to look at the minimum wage as it goes up. So the minimum wage is higher in 21 states as of January 1st, including New York, where the minimum wage rose December 31st, according to the National Employment Law Project. The increases in California, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and New York are steps towards an eventual $15 minimum approved by your state legislatures. So if you have a complaint, you've got to go to your state legislature and say, listen, this isn't working for me. I can't sustain these higher costs. So the increases are planned later in the year in states including Connecticut, New York, Oregon, and Washington, D.C. And some counties and cities are raising their minimums as well. So you need to find out, whatever state that you're listening to me in, find out what counties and cities that those items are going up, because it could affect you. While many businesses pay hourly workers over the minimum, when there's an increase in the wage, many owners give all their staffers a raise to stay competitive amid the higher labor costs. It goes up. So what happens when it goes up? When your minimum wage goes up, there's a whole bunch of other things that go up. Taxes go up. Workers' compensation goes up. And there's several other things that go up. So when wages go up, there's a whole bunch of other costs that go up along with it. And that costs the American small business person. And it is really becomes a compliance issue of trying to maintain everything that you need to do minimum wage-wise, tax-wise, workers' compensation-wise, everything else. So understand that when counties and governments and federal governments talk about raising the minimum wage, everything goes up right with it. Everybody doesn't understand that. They say, oh, good, we're all going to get that minimum wage. It's all going to work for us. But it doesn't. That's the problem. It does not. Because the costs go up. So we have to pass it on to the consumer, our clients. So there are some new overtime rules that are going to affect the Labor Department, the Federal Labor Department. Long-awaited revamp of its overtime rules are now in effect, giving an estimated 1.3 million workers a raise. Workers earning under $684 per week or $35,568 must now be paid overtime, up from the previous threshold of $455 per week or $23,660 annually. So overtime needs to be paid now. Retailers, restaurants, and manufacturers are most likely to be affected, with shift supervisors and assistant managers among the positions that must now be paid overtime after 40 hours a week. While all employers are subject to the rules, the higher threshold is likely to have the greatest impact on small companies, small businesses like you and me, that lack the revenue cushion that the larger companies or the larger businesses have against higher costs. Employers are expected to limit the hours of some workers so they don't incur overtime or raise some staffers' pay to a level above the threshold, making them exempt from the new rules. More information from the overtime rules can be found on the Labor Department's website at www.dol.gov/agencies, okay? So we have a new W-4 form. The IRS has issued new W-4 forms for 2020, changing the way taxes withheld from employees' pay. The new form reflect changes required by the tax law that went into effect in late 2017. They do away with allowances long used to calculate how much money should be withheld from paychecks. Instead, the new form use information that can be found on employees' tax returns. Current employees don't need to fill out a new W-4, but new staffers or employees who want to change their withholdings do need to complete them. The IRS has created a calculator to help small businesses compute withholding for the new forms if they don't use automatic payroll software or providers. It can be found on the IRS website, www.irs.gov. Search for the new W-4 form on that. Now, California went into this quite some time ago, and I always forget to bring them in my car. But it's the plastic bags, okay? A lot of them are being banned. And in California, they've been banned for quite some time. But for the life of me, I always forget to put the plastic bags in my car. And I'm always having to buy new plastic bags. So, a growing number of states, counties, and cities have passed legislation prohibiting or restricting retailers and other businesses from giving customers single-use plastic bags to carry purchases. Oregon's ban went into effect January 1. In Maine, New York State, and Vermont have similar prohibitions going into effect later in the year. There are variations among the laws and some exceptions. In New York, for example, pharmacies are exempt if the purchases is for prescription drugs. And restaurants can give diners bags to take out food. Some of the laws, however, also require, I should say, a 5-cent charge if a customer wants a paper bag. I don't get that. Don't you think a paper bag should be free? If a paper bag is biodegradable, that should be free. A plastic bag doesn't degrade. I mean, it just stays there. So while the laws have passed out of environmental concerns, small retailers might see a benefit from not having to buy and supply plastic bags. And those that sell reusable shopping tote bags should get a small revenue uptick. California changes we need to discuss because there's so many new ones in there. So, a new California law gives consumers more control over the personal information companies collect and share with other businesses. While the law aims to exempt very small companies, those that do business with California residents, including out-of-state firms, remember that's the key word, including out-of-state firms, can find themselves required to comply. Under the law, companies must be able to tell consumers what information they have and, what they do with it. Consumers must have the option to have their information deleted from companies' computer systems. Businesses that handle information collected by others, for example, payment processors, can also find themselves subject to the law. So you need to take you need to take that into consideration. Companies are subject to the law if they have worldwide revenue above $25 million, collect or receive the personal information of 50,000 or more California consumers, households or electronic devices, or those who get at least half their revenue from selling personal information. Small businesses can reach the 50,000 I've lost my place, threshold for collecting or receiving information. An individual who has a phone or a tablet or a PC at home and one at work counts as 4 users, not 1. So let's read that again. An individual who has a phone, a tablet, a PC at home, and one at work counts as 4 users, not 1. So think about that, okay? You're collecting that data. A separate law puts strict limits on who can work as an independent contractor or freelancer. The law is aimed at ensuring that workers in the gig economy, like Uber and Lyft drivers, get the protections that labor laws give employees. It will force business owners to decide whether to hire these workers as employees, even for temporary assignments, or look for help in other states. Changes in California laws are also noteworthy because the state can be a trailblazer when it comes to employee, consumer, and environmental issues. The nation's first laws requiring paid sick leave for workers and banning plastic bags were enacted in California. But let me tell you, the problem with that is that it creates a lot of compliance issues for small businesses and even larger businesses. It means that you're going to have to go out and find somebody that can help you with the compliance of your business with all of these various rules and regulations. That is the big thing. The other issue is that in California now, if you have 5 or more employees, you also have to provide them with sex harassment trainings. Okay? Sexual harassment training. 5 or more employees. So you better go out there and find some providers that keep you in compliance and gives the necessary education information on sexual harassment to your employees. Another compliance issue. So that is it for right now on everything that's going into effect. It's a lot of compliance. A lot of compliance. I am glad I'm out of the state of California now because I don't have to deal with all that nonsense. I don't have to deal with all of the forms and documentation. I used to hate it every single year. The County of Los Angeles would send in to every single business a property tax form, and you had to fill those out. If you didn't, they immediately gave them or gave the business a bill without seeing anything. And we had to go through the whole process of a hearing and everything else trying to get those down. I just had a client the other day send me a notice from the city of Los Angeles regarding their income. And she had made about $500,000, so they billed her for her business license $5,000. So imagine that you're paying $5,000, and you have federal taxes, and you have local taxes, and then you have the federal taxes you have to deal with. It's a never-ending cycle of taxation in California. It is so difficult to conduct a business there because you're being hit every single day with some type of a form from some type of a government entity telling you, hey, you need to be in compliance. One of the things that I hated when I lived there is I had a home up in the Hollywood Hills, and it was right under the Hollywood sign. If you've ever seen the big old Hollywood sign, I lived right underneath that. I had a house. I would always get these notices from the city of Los Angeles saying that I was overusing water compared to the rest of my neighbors. Well, in my backyard, I had trees, I had fruit trees, I had a little tiny patch of grass, but I watered it every single day, and even in the front. Then I went to every other day. The city sent me notices saying I was not using the same amount of water as the rest of my neighbors. Well, the rest of my neighbors were not using any water outside because they all was cemented in. They had cement backyards. They had cement patios. They had cement walls. They had everything cemented in. But they were coming after me because I had a beautiful green backyard with rose bushes and flower gardens and everything else. Fig trees and white peaches. But they came after me because I was using too much water compared to the rest of my neighbors, and they wanted me to go to a water use class. I just laughed at it. I never went. I refused to go and be told how to use water in my own backyard. Government is on us every single day. They're pounding on us. I get emails every single day with copies of notices from my clients in Los Angeles, California, and Orange County, saying, listen, we got this, we got that. How do we deal with this? How do we deal with that? Every single day I'm getting some kind of a notice from my clients because they need to deal with a compliance issue within the city, the state, the county, or the federal government. And at some point in time, the state of California is going to be a dried up old state, and there's not going to be any businesses there because they just can no longer afford operating there. It becomes more and more expensive and more cumbersome on small businesses. And that's why you see businesses moving out of the state of California, because it's become such a compliance heavy state. And there are a lot of things that you have to comply with there. So, to 2020, there's going to be some increased costs because of various compliance issues that you need to take into consideration. So this is what I'm suggesting to you. Find someone that is really good in compliance that you can hire on a part-time basis to come in and review everything that you report, everything that you file, everything that you pay to any type of business government entity that's affecting your business, and make sure that you're in compliance. And I've used this before. I'll give you a good example. State of California. If you own a business there, and if you have filed as an LLC, S Corp, C Corp, that type of entity, you're required every single year to file what is called a Statement of Information, SIO, or SOI, I'm sorry. It costs $25. You can do it online. However, if you forget to file it on time, it immediately jumps up to $250. And then if you don't know that you're supposed to file the SOI, Statement of Information, you can be suspended as a company. I get calls all the time from companies saying, listen, we just looked our company up in the Secretary of State's website and we are suspended. How do we get out of suspension? People think, well, I'm creating a company. I filed my incorporation papers. That's all I have to do except to file the business tax returns. But there are other things that you have to do to keep that company in compliance with state business laws. So it becomes very burdensome to be a company or a business in the state of California. I'm just now learning everything about the state of Florida. It's a lot easier, let me tell you. In Florida, it's a whole lot easier. But there's still some compliance rules, but not as many as in California or New York. New York is another bad state. If you have any questions, I want you to send me a text, 818-252-5682. The text number line is 818-252-5682. Listen, guys, stay in compliance. It's less costly. Find someone to help you with it, and you will be okay. This is Mike Lodge. Let's talk again in the next podcast. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the WBT with Michael Lodge. Join us again tomorrow as we explore more about business and taxes. Follow us on iHeartRadio and go to our podcast website at www.wbtpod.com and listen to all of our podcasts and read our blogs.
This podcast has been produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content.